Direct from Fort Meade, Maryland, this is DINFOS Live.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of DINFOS Live. I'm Major David J. Murphy, an instructor and your host for today's program. Last year, we welcomed onto the program 3 of the Defense Media Activities Defense Media Award winners. They spoke to us about their award-winning work, the things they learned from their experience, and what tips and techniques other creators within the field could use to help elevate their craft to set themselves up for success in the future. And what I hope will become an annual tradition here at DINFOS, we're doing it again. This time bringing in winners from the 2022 competition onto the program to see what we can learn from their experience. I'd like to welcome to the program Civilian Graphic Designer of the Year, David Perry, Military Videographer of the Year, Warrant Officer Akeel Austin, and Civilian Photographer of the Year, Daniel Malta. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. Before we start talking to our panel today, I'd like to remind everyone that DINFOS Live is live for a reason, because we want your questions. So please ask any questions you have of our panelists in the comments below, and we might just read them on the air. All right, gentlemen, why don't you first tell us about yourselves and your careers? We'll go and start with you, Warrant Officer.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone all around the world, whoever's watching. But Warrant Officer Austin here. First started off my career at 1st Marine Division Combat Camera as a combat photographer. During that time, I was able to, deploy to the Middle East on a crisis response deployment. And following 1st Marine Division, I was able to go to the Syracuse military photojournalism program. And then following that, I went out to Air Station Iwakuni, Japan, then back to the States to North Carolina to 2nd Marine Division, and then now the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing.
That's great. That sounds like an awesome career. How about you, Mr. Malta?
Well, I know it looks like I'm still in high school, but I've actually been doing this for about 15 years now. I started in 2007 as a Marine Corps combat correspondent. And then in 2015, I got out and started working for the Army. In that span of time, I've been able to work as a broadcaster, a print journalist, a Marine Corps and a Army marketer, digital strategist, and now I'm a public affairs officer where I do a little bit of everything with community relations being one of my primary focuses.
Nice. And we actually had a question from before the show asking you specifically about any experience you had working with base newspapers.
Yes, so I worked for the Desert Warrior News in MCAS Yuma, and then just even last year, the Frontline here at Fort Stewart Hunt Army Airfield, we had a newspaper before we moved to the Frontline Online.
That's great. Okay, good to hear. All right, and let's go to Mr. Perry.
I must be the bookend of the age group here. I'm on the grandpa of the group, so. I just hit my 20-year mark as a civilian employee, all of it working at Hill Air Force Base. Prior to that, I was doing design, videography, photography in the private sector. Got introduced to graphics while going through college, earning my bachelor's degree in social psychology, and it seemed to help pay the bills, and found I had a knack for it. So I've been doing graphics since 1990. Because of that, I've enjoyed the spectrum of what I've learned, between technology and software and processes and tools. There's probably nothing I haven't touched when it comes to broadcasting or digital design, web design, print media. It's been an enjoyable career.
Well, it's great to hear that you're continuing to take on new challenges and learning new things in your career field. I think that's really excellent to hear. Now, you all have a tremendous body of work, and I highly recommend everyone go to the DMA page on the Divids Hub homepage and go check out your award-winning packages. But can you tell me specifically about one particular project that stuck out to you, about that project, and specifically what went into creating it? And when we get to start with you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you. At some point, you get tired of designing Eagles flags and F-16s and F-35s. So whenever there's a project you can work on that allows you to think outside the box are the ones I'm attracted to. Special observance committees are one of my mainstream clients. And so you're showing on the screen there a project I did for the Black History Month. What I particularly like about this project is it reflects some new capabilities that I've been trying to learn, which is video and motion graphics. This is a project that our Public Affairs Office produced a series of interviews, interviewing local business owners, and this video series needed a nice, catchy, engaging intro to those videos. And so that's what this graphic is.
That's great. Yeah, we actually just talked about motion graphics in last month's episode, episode 27. So if you're eager to learn more about that, go check out that episode. That's great. Okay, how about you, Mr. Malta?
Yeah, I guess I'll talk about the 116th Military Intelligence Best Warrior Competition. So when I look at content, I honestly feel like 50% of what makes a photo great is being in the right place at the right time. And so what I did there was, through my networking, through my relationships here at Hunter Army Airfield, they actually reached out to me to be a part of this. So I work for Installation Management Command. It's an amazing command to work for, but they're one of our tenant units. And so because I built that relationship ahead of time, they called me up to get my support, and that's kind of what led to the largest part of my package, which was the photo series.
That's great. That's great. All right. How about you, Warrant Officer?
So the project I'd like to, talk about is the one called Changing the Game. And I really focus on the Marine Corps' force design concept, which is really modernizing the force for naval expeditionary warfare. And some of the viewers may know it, some may not. But what we were able to do was travel across the country from North Carolina to Yuma, Arizona, to participate in an exercise that helped, 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines demonstrate their distributed operations capabilities. And what I really like about what we were able to do with that project was not only was the unit distributed, but we were also able to distribute our content collectors and the Marines attached to me from North Carolina into California, San Clemente Island, up to Barstow, Monterey and Fort Hunter Liggett, and in and around Yuma, Arizona. And we were able to showcase using some digital map graphics to show the distributed operations of that unit and showcase what the unit was doing or what the division was doing overseas as well in the Mediterranean. So we're really able to capture the full scope of the infantry battalion experiment and the distributed operations capabilities in real world and also in their final evaluated exercise. So that a big project, and it took a lot of work to get there, but I think it all came together in the end.
That's great. That's great. Now, as someone who, myself, I've done the photo and graphics side when I was enlisted, you knew when you had something that might be special, right? When you were going out there, you got specifically a pretty nice photo or, graphic or video. When you were creating your work, did you have any inkling or feeling that you might actually win the contest before you submitted? And we'll start with you, Warrant Officer.
Well, short answer is no, not necessarily, but we really focus on successfully communicating that objective. So we worked really hard on the project, to get the point across to the unit, the commanders, the Marines within the division. But then on the back end, when you look back at it, a lot of work went into it. So it should do well in competing and, submit the product and then it wins. But ultimately, I wasn't aware or even keep an eye on it because I was at the Warrant Officer Basic course during the competition final. So what that kind of led to was that this was my last opportunity to actually compete as a staff sergeant. So going from a staff sergeant to a warrant officer, it was kind of, the culminating point for me as well, that I was able to win as I was going through the Warrant Officer Basic course.
Yeah, no, I think that's a lovely bookend to a career in the enlisted side, is having that win as you go on to the officer side. So that's great to hear. Okay, how about you, Mr. Malta?
Yeah, I thought I had an okay package, but I did not think that I would take DOD. You can go on any Instagram, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, and you'll see just tons of great, amazing content. So did I think that I was, on par with all those, amazing people? Not really. I had hopes, but it was a total surprise that I got it at the DoD level.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Mr. Perry.
Well, I kid myself into thinking that everything I designed was award-winning, but the real answer is I just enjoy putting together the best product I can for my client. Seeing them light up, to produce something that exceeds their expectations is the real reward. So at the time, did I think it would be even used for the competition? Not necessarily. But as I mentioned before, when I'm doing the motion graphics, that gets me excited, and so I just enjoy what I do, and making the client happy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a big part of what we do and why we do it. Obviously creating award-winning work can be challenging. So talk to me about some of the challenges you faced in creating your submissions. And we'll start with you, Mr. Perry.
I think the biggest challenge, aside from time restraints and deadlines, coming something from out of thin air and getting it done within the next 2 hours is obviously a big challenge. But one of the things I kid around with my coworker about is having to be a furniture mover. Taking something that somebody else has put together and submit it, saying, "Hey, we need a professional product out of it," and they're loyal to it. They want to see their design done, and quite frankly, it's challenging to. It's just not a good product what they're suggesting. So you still have to do it. You still have to meet the client's needs, but frequently I'll still design something else that I think, based on my vision of what I think the product could end up looking like, and they end up buying off on it. They end up realizing that, yeah, we do like what you provided instead, and so it's nice to tackle it from that direction as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mr. Malta.
So I briefly mentioned being in the right place at the right time. So as a civilian, no longer a green suiter, I'm not getting deployed. I'm not going on, exercises in the Philippines. I have less opportunities to get those amazingly motivating moments. And so for me, I think that is the biggest challenge, is inserting myself in events and opportunities to capture that imagery.
Great points. Absolutely. Okay, Warrant Officer.
I like to say that the challenge is something that ignites me, and when I look back, the challenges that I tackle now are something that may have been something I was a little bit afraid of coming to the position that I was in when I was selected as a winner. But being able to take a team of Marines, lead them, take them across the country or abroad, and successfully complete a task that was asked of us, that is challenging, but it is what makes the work great. So being able to, or working through the logistics of getting across the country, capturing imagery there, pulling back imagery from the Marines forward in the Mediterranean, and conceptualizing the product for the commanders and the generals that want to see this concept explained in a digestible way. I think those two things, the challenge, the logistics of getting across the country and putting together this package, and also the conceptualization of the message that the commander wants to put out. So I think those two things combined is really what makes some of these products really great, but also very difficult to finish.
Absolutely. I know traveling with a lot of camera gear can definitely be very difficult. Obviously these are individual effort awards, correct? And so, they honored your ability to create amazing work, but no man is an island. And ultimately, we're nothing without our teams. So can you talk to me a little bit about how your command teams helped you out with your projects with regard to perhaps maybe providing editing support, feedback, sounding board, or facilitating in some other way, such as logistics? And we'll go ahead and start with Mr. Malta.
So first of all, quality of life is super important. There's a reason why the Army has a people priority. because that enables the warfighter. I'm not a warfighter anymore, but at the same time, my quality of life directly impacts the work that I'm able to do. So having a command team that understands what I need, what my family needs is important. But then also my PAO director, he gives me a level of trust that enables me. He also removes barriers that also enables me. So really having those support structures kind of help me do what I need to do to get out content.
Okay, great. Mr. Perry?
Yeah, our public affairs office has a really strong VI shop. That can't happen without amazing support from our command. They provide us the resources and tools to be able to do a quality job. They also provide us the freedom and latitude to explore and experiment with new techniques and abilities. And that's just I can't say enough how important that is for us.
Absolutely. Warrant Officer.
Yeah, I think we have a really good, for the Marine Corps, we have a really good trust and support chain of command, up and down the chain of command. And for me specifically, when it comes to my submissions to the packages, my leadership was able to, facilitate the travel, facilitate coordination with the unit prior to us arriving here. So when we show up and we get on the deck, we're able to, find the point of contact and set up a schedule, production schedule, and we need to get these shots. We need to make sure we get this imagery. And it was seamless to an extent. And I think the leadership at 2nd Marine Division was able to really, set that up for us. So having that support from them is critical, but also the trust to send myself and 2 junior Marines and to find 2 other junior Marines that were already attached to distribute them independently to be able to capture that imagery on their own. I think that's also very important, to have the trust in your people to really like complete the task that you send them out to do, because on their own they're often going to be in that way. So we have to give them that trust, otherwise we're going to stagnate their creativity and their independence.
Absolutely, trust is critically important. Obviously we've got some creators watching, right? So what's some tips and techniques that, really hard and fast tenets that other creators can take that you can provide to them to help them potentially succeed and maybe be on this program in the future? And we'll go and start with you, Warrant Officer.
I like to say one tip that I always kind of, bring to a new office is that simple is perfect. And you really need to just refine what you're good at and take all the things that you know. And if you're in video, I mean, you have some experience with graphic work or maybe even some photo compositional techniques. And if you just keep it simple and apply them all together with your video, the picture's just moving at that point. So just keep it simple there, but the technique, all your peers, all the resources available to you, the technique is being able to take those things with a grain of salt, take the feedback with a grain of salt, the criticism with a grain of salt, and keep moving forward with what the vision is, keep refining little by little. It's not, leaps and bounds from photography to videography or graphic design to photography. It's a really easy thing to kind of, overcomplicate, but it's simple is perfect. If you keep it simple, usually you hit the mark.
Okay, great. Mr. Perry.
There's a constant stream of new tools and techniques available out there in our industry. So what's important is taking the time to practice it, to experiment with it. Oftentimes doing it off the clock when you're doing it, so that way when you come on the job, you're proficient at it. But for me, focusing on what the client needs, being my primary, again, that's my primary objective. But as far as a tip for a good submission is, I can't stress enough the importance of caption writing. To give an example, in 2017, I won the DoD identity design. I don't think there's anything particularly stellar about that year's logo design that I did, but I took time to write a good caption explaining the methodology and the symbology behind what I put into it, and it was effective. I think it helped show effort, as well as explain the methods that I used.
Yeah, no, capture writing can't express how important that is. We had the opportunity at my level to do a few judging at a lower level of the competition, and the quality of captions definitely affected some of the scores, absolutely. So make sure those captions are within regulations and all the instructions so that they are in line with what DIVIDS wants when you upload it, absolutely. All right, Mr. Malta?
Yeah, I'd say artistic subtlety. So getting into photography, obviously I'm learning all of these techniques. And one thing I see a lot of times is people will learn a technique and then they will overuse that technique. And so I would just say to caution yourself when it comes to learning new techniques, but add all of those techniques together. Take the masking tool, bring out the color on somebody's face, add a little bit of extra contrast here and there, add a tiny bit of vignette to bring your viewers into the subject in the center of the frame. But with anything and everything, just use artistic subtlety. And then the other technique that I kind of use every year when it comes to awards is I plan from the beginning of the year. So when I do my civilian evaluation form and I'm building things out for that next year's evaluations, I'm already thinking about next year's awards. And it's not necessarily about the awards, but it at least gives me something to chase after instead of chasing my own tail. So I just think that planning early is also helpful.
Absolutely, and just make sure you're always staying within those instructions and regs and you'll be just fine. All right, well, let's talk about inspiration a little bit. I think you can't go a day without being exposed to some sort of content somewhere, right? We all have our phones with us. We're all seeing great visuals going through our eyes and whatnot. So talk to me about who inspires you in your career and your creativity. And we'll start with you, Mr. Malta.
Yeah, so first and foremost, really just seeing everybody else out in the force. So I'm big on Instagram. When I say I'm big on it, I don't have a lot of followers, but I'm big on looking at other people's pages. And you go to the Marines Instagram, and it literally just motivates me to see what's out there, and to know that those are a lot of times E1s, E2s, E3s doing that work. So that really motivates me. But also looking at individuals. I'm not talking about YouTube gurus. I'm talking about people in the force. So when I was in the Marines, there was a guy by the name of Warren Peace. He had an awesome name, so he's easy to remember.
I remember him.
But he was putting out amazing content when I was a junior Marine. And then fast forward to when I was a civilian at Fort Sill, we had a young soldier, Dustin Bivens. He was putting out phenomenal content every day. And so really just seeing the people to the left and the right and what they're doing, I think that's really what motivates me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure he produced excellent content. The name, not as epic, but excellent content nonetheless. Okay, how about Mr. Perry?
I'm fortunate. I have a stellar coworker who's on top of his game and is a really good resource for me and giving feedback and input when I need it. And, he's been doing this even longer than I have. But then also outside of him, I just have a tendency to be a student of everything that I see, whether I'm watching a commercial or a movie or something else. There's so much inspiration out there to derive from. And I find myself frequently dissecting what I see to determine, do I know how to do that? What's the technique and how they achieve that? And so that's been my approach.
Okay, great. Warrant Officer?
Yeah, I would say I don't necessarily have a single person that, I look for inspiration from, but, the collective, like Daniel was saying, is really great. And, what's really awesome about the military is that we do a lot of things that are in repetition. So that just means that there's different people with different perspectives, different personalities, looking at similar things in a different way. So there's so much out there that we're able to, look at and critique and see if we can replicate and use all of that to, increase our talent base. But, there's a few people, I might just mention like Gunner Sergeant Donald Holbert over at the 15th View. He's a great guy, incredible shooter when he was still shooting. Staff Sergeant Dana Beasley, she's an incredible photographer. I think she's won a couple competitions, maybe not VMA awards, but here and there, she's awesome. And then, Lance Corporal Isabella Mancini, she's over at AFN Iwakuni, and there's a different mission set there, but she's still putting out incredible stuff that she's just, not used to doing. So being able to see, like, the Marines, my peers and, fellow Marines out there and service members out there just doing something different every day and a fresh take at all of it is what kind of inspires me, and hopefully it drives my Marines as well. And when they come to me and ask me the question, hopefully I know I have the answer to give them, because I know those Marines as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, all three of you challenged yourselves to learn new skills to compete in the categories that you were competing in. Specifically, Warrant Officer and Mr. Malta, you both essentially switched sides in terms of covering areas where you weren't initially trained in. And, again, Mr. Perry, you mentioned learning a new capability for your graphics package. So can you talk to me a little bit about that experience of learning those new skills and what educational resources you used to learn those skills and help continue to improve your skills as you go forward? And we'll start with you, Mr. Perry.
Traditionally, it was the mainstream was lynda.com, and that evolved into LinkedIn Learning. But now there are just so many content creators that are on their game. They just know they have specialties, and so it's nice to find specialists in different fields that can teach you and on how to use the different tools and resources that are out there. AI is obviously an industry that we can't ignore. It's something that I'm currently learning how to do, and trying to find a place where it has there's a place for it within the Air Force and the products that our public affairs provides. It's been nice, and one of the reasons why I've been doing print and web graphics for so long, and I've talked about it before doing the motion graphics. It's been nice to use the online tools for learning how to do that in order to bring a new capability to our office. I think it's added increased value to our organization and in communicating the commander's mission, the Air Force mission.
Absolutely. AI is definitely something we all need to watch going forward, because I think it's going to be interesting to see how this and other competitions deal with AI-generated imagery. Okay, how about you, Mr. Malta?
Put your ear to the ground, people, because there is always free stuff that the Army, Marine Corps, Air Force offers their civilians, and I'm sure their active duty as well. So in the Department of the Army, I think we have all civilians in the public affairs field have access to Udemy, which is very similar to LinkedIn Learning. And then we also have career managers. So we have like the CP22 public affairs career field managers, and they always are offering us opportunities. So right now I'm enrolled in Rutgers University for a PR certificate. So really, ask and you shall receive. Keep your ears to the ground. Stop ignoring emails. And read things, because there are plenty of opportunities out there to continue learning. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know in the Air Force specifically, LinkedIn Learning is free for our public affairs professionals. All right, and finally, Warrant Officer.
Yeah, first I went to the Syracuse program for the military photojournalism program, and that allowed me to really flex and develop my creativity in different mediums. And so a lot of what I did there was, some drone imagery, drone videography for myself and for fellow students. They like, who's the guy with the drone who knows how to fly? And they would come to me. And then some time-lapse photography was one of the things that I really honed in on while I was there, and refining that technique. But early on, switching over from photo to video, I really looked at YouTube tutorials on how to use, Adobe Premiere. And now I use DaVinci Resolve, which has a lot of training classes and whatnot on their website. I used lynda.com a lot at Syracuse because it was free for the students there, which I guess now is called LinkedIn Learnings. But it's too easy. There's so much free knowledge out there. Just like Daniel was saying, you just got to go out there and get it and take advantage of what's available to you. That's freely. And definitely give that back to your peers and your subordinates, because if you get it freely or you pay for it, whatever, knowledge is for everyone. That's the biggest resource there.
Absolutely, pay it forward. And I highly recommend looking into time-lapse drone photography as the next step. I also went through the military photojournalism program back in the day. Excellent program, can't recommend it enough. Now, obviously, 3/4 of the year has passed us by almost. We're almost into October. Are you working on anything that you think might have the potential to be a winner next year? Or in the case of yourself, Warrant Officer, is your team working on anything that could potentially move the needle with regard to awards in the year ahead? We'll start with you, Warrant Officer, on that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate I don't get to compete anymore, but that's all right. I get to teach the Marines some of the things that we're talking about here. But over here at 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing, we have a pretty robust retention campaign, but we're really not just focusing on like what goes into retaining Marines, but the individual Marine, the human interest, the personality features, looking into those Marines' lives, their background, some history about them, why they joined. So on and so forth. It layers to everyone's story, as we always like to say at DINFOS, is that everyone has a story, and why not tell it? So that's what we're trying to do here, and hopefully some of those human interest pieces actually catch the eye, develop some interest, and compete well in this year's competition, and hopefully some of the Marines, you'll see their names in the placements or winners this coming year.
Absolutely, I'll be on the lookout for it. All right, how about you, Mr. Perry?
It's a little bit of a tricky question for me because for my category, there's 5 different areas of submission to choose from. There's layout and design, digital art, photo illustration, identity design, animation. But I think the thing that stands out the most right now, project that is on my plate, is something I'm doing for the Aerospace Museum. It'll be another motion graphic product. It's something that I've got a beta access to Google Earth Studio that has a new capability besides just the satellite images from Google Earth. And I'm hoping that there's a fit for that in my project, and applying some new techniques and stuff to this project. So that's the one I'm hoping to be my crowning jewel for this year.
Absolutely, that's great. Yeah, I've seen some products with Google Earth Studio, so it's definitely a very intriguing program. All right, how about Mr. Malta?
So I'm blessed to live in beautiful Savannah, Georgia, and usually when service members and the military are doing things, it's on base, but we've actually been doing things out in Savannah. So we did a Patriot Day run. I got some great content from that. Starting at Forsyth Park, running throughout downtown Savannah, through all the beautiful live oaks. And then we have a best squad, the Army's best squad competition coming up, and they're also holding it in downtown Savannah. So I think that situational contrast, seeing the service members in a place where they kind of seem out of place, is just really great for content. And so I think those are a couple things that I'm looking forward to, bringing the military out in town.
Okay, great. Well, I just got word that while we don't have any questions from social media, you're getting a lot of accolades in the comments, so definitely go check those out after the show and make sure to like them. So that's great to hear. Yeah, you all have contributed so much and given so much of yourselves today with regard to the valuable information that I know myself and others have found very rewarding. But finally, I have to ask you, like any good PA, is there anything else you'd like to add? And we'll start with Mr. Malta.
So I think a big thing, going from being a green suiter to a civilian, when you're in uniform, you're caring more about your friends, you're caring more about your soldiers, your Marines. But I think it's also important to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. When you get out, regardless, let's say you're separated from the military altogether, you're just out in the civilian sector, nobody's looking after you. So competition's important because it helps build your resume. Caring about the quality of your work matters because it's building your portfolio. So focus on yourself, because at the end of the day, you're only going to have yourself to blame if you make it out after 20 years and can't find a job.
Absolutely. With resumes putting together, definitely want to keep in mind those certifications and those awards. Absolutely. All right, Mr. Perry.
Well, you're probably not soliciting this, but I'm still going to put in a plug for the media awards. I personally appreciate we have these media awards. It's nice to not only make the client happy, but have another platform for being able to showcase our wares and call attention to it. It not only helps the person, but also helps our department. Helps the public affairs office in showcasing and showing other people what we provide. So anytime you can upload stuff to Divids, write good captions, I think that's worth underscoring.
Absolutely. All right, and last word goes to the warrant officer. Take it home.
I appreciate that, sir. I'm going to just say, reach out, get the criticism and feedback from people around the service. There's a lot of great talent out there. Don't limit yourself. Send your portfolios to whoever. I mean, it could be the three or four of us, however many people are in here working the studio right now and listening in, but get your work out there, take advantage of the free knowledge, and continue to push.
Great words. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. That is our show for this month. I absolutely want to thank my guests for making time to be here today. Remember, DINFOS Live is also a podcast, so if you rather hear these episodes rather than watch them, you can find them on your podcatcher of choice. Just search DINFOS Live. Join us next month on October 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern, when we'll be talking to our 2023 Hall of Fame inductees. Well, that's it for our show this month. I'm Major David J. Murphy, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good night, everybody.